I want to talk about what being healthy really means. I know we throw the terms health and wellness around a lot, but what do they really mean? And perhaps more importantly, how can we each start to pursue our own version of wellness? So, this is exactly what my guest and I get into on today's episode. Nicola Mercer is one of the coaches on my team. She works with me inside the Wellness Coach Academy, supporting all of our students and new coaches as they are working on building their businesses. And before coming onto my team, she was actually a student herself inside my program and became a certified coach through WCA. But before that, she was a corporate girl working for Nike for 20 plus years. Now, Nicola learned a lot when she worked at Nike about the power of taking care of both your body and mind, and also why, as adults, we have a responsibility to normalize healthy living for the younger generation. We get into all of these topics and much more in today's conversation that you're going to get to sit in on. So without further ado, let's dive in. Well, hey, Nicola, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kim. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to have you here. We've known each other for a while now, like first when you were a student of mine inside the Wellness Coach Academy. And then, of course, when I brought you inside onto the team. And now you're working in WCA supporting the students in there, which is so amazing. But I am so happy to finally have you here so we can have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And it's a bit of a dream because I discovered you through your podcast. So to be here sitting chatting with you on the podcast feels slightly surreal.
That is so funny. I had forgotten about that. That's so true. So I love it. Full circle podcast journey. That's
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, awesome. So I would just love for you to let's just start by giving our audience a bit of context. Just go ahead and introduce yourself. Just give us like a little bit of backstory. Like what was it that brought you to the work that you're doing today and what are you doing today?
Yeah, so I'm Nicola Mercer, and as you can hear from the accent, I'm based here in the UK. I'm in the northeast, just outside of a city called Newcastle. And I've been in the health and wellness sector as a coach for around 17 months now. I set up my business Life Now coaching after being made redundant from Nike. So I worked for Nike for 20 years. I was in the corporate world for 23 years. So this was quite a shift for me. And that's, a bit of the story I'll come on to. But I founded Life Now Coaching to work with other female entrepreneurs and women in corporate who feel really stuck and overwhelmed and just caught in that spin cycle of life where they really do want to feel better and they know they should take better care of themselves, but life is just so busy that there's just never the time to press pause and make any of the changes they really want to make. Because I know through my journey, how much better you do feel when you do put those healthy habits into place. So I'm really passionate about helping women to feel better, to up-level their lives. And I really focus on helping people to feel healthy, happy and strong. That's kind of the thing that I go for, because I believe that when you feel strong in body and mind, then you can really live that fulfilled, abundant, wealthy lifestyle. And wealthy doesn't have to mean financial and, money. It's whatever it means to you that makes you feel happy and successful. So yeah, the backstory is that I'd worked at Nike for 20 years, and through COVID, like many people, there were lots of changes in the business, and Nike went through quite a big restructure, which meant that my job was no longer there. The company made lots of changes and it all happened really quickly. And I didn't have a plan B. I was mid-40s. I'd been there, as I said, a long time, and I felt almost part of the furniture. And it was something that I always worried about, what I would do next if there was a time when I had to leave the company. And I'd just put it to the back of my mind, probably wrongly so, because when that point did come, it was quite scary, thinking about what would come next. And because of COVID and having time to actually, I say slow down, slow down as in I wasn't traveling and away from home as much as I used to be, but certainly to just see life in quite a different way, it made that experience of losing my job something that was very different to how I would have ever imagined it. I think if we hadn't been through the pandemic. And so I really grabbed hold of it as an opportunity to do something different with my life, because I have quite a long history of struggling with anxiety and low confidence, which actually really held me back in my career, although I was very successful and I'd gone through, quite a few different positions and progressed, I'd say at a steady pace. I didn't grow in the way that I probably could have at Nike. It was a very big
Mhm.
organization. There were lots of opportunities there, but I'd held myself back because of how I felt. And I'd struggled and hidden the mental health issues that I had from the people I worked with. And when I'd also gone through some physical challenges and I'd lost my mum quite suddenly in 2019, going then into the pandemic, all of these things were kind of bubbling away under the surface, making me think this isn't where I'm meant to be. I felt so much calmer and in control, being able to be at home and have that time to reflect and think about where I wanted to be. So that when I did face losing my job and had no idea what to do, it became this amazing, opportunity to really take stock of where I was at and what I wanted to do. And that evolved into where I am now, being a coach and helping to share this message about healthy living.
Yes, I love that. I mean, that is quite a journey, and
Yeah.
sounds like you went through a lot. I would love to hear a little bit more about that transition, like to building your own business, right? Like that's a lot of time that you spent in the corporate world working
Mm.
for Nike, and then now you run your own business. So I'm curious, like when you decided to set up your business, like to take this opportunity, and that's, I think it sounds to me like that's how you viewed it, right? It's not something that you were expecting to be made redundant and to lose your job. But it sounds like you started to view it as an opportunity to actually, well, let's recalibrate and let's see, okay, what do I actually want for my career? So when you decided to set up your business, then what were some of the things that you had learned from your corporate career, all those years working at Nike, that you brought with you into your business?
Yeah, I love talking about this actually, because I was completely oblivious to the world of entrepreneurship and the people who are running amazing businesses and all kinds of different businesses out there. And I had no idea either about the world of online, business, and especially how many of us work in the health and wellness and other types of coaching fields. So, I came into it as a complete beginner from that point of view. But the experience that I had at corporate meant that I was very strategic. And as a person, I'm also very organized. I'm very process driven. I'm very solution orientated. Sometimes maybe too much. And that's something I've had to work on in this new world. But those things did definitely give me a lot of foundational skills to really be able to think about what the business would look like. And I've definitely seen, being part of many different groups of entrepreneurs and business owners over the past year and a half, that I think has really helped me to fast track compared to some, because a lot of people have a business idea and they start it off, but then they get very bogged down and the only thing they're really doing is the marketing piece. They haven't really thought through what the business is truly about, who it's serving, why it's serving those people, what you were looking for from results, and not necessarily just revenue results, but what do you really want to achieve and what does that look like, not just right now, but in 3 and 5 years' time. So those things that I'd been working on through most of my career at Nike meant that I could, even before I knew what the business was going to be, or that I was going to have a business, in fact, it enabled me to look at what I wanted from my life. And that was something that, because I didn't have a plan B, actually became the starting point of, right, what comes next? What it was asking myself what I'm good at, what I enjoy doing, what skills can I bring forward from Nike, and what am I passionate about? That's part of who I am and what I want to be in this next phase of my life. And so I think having that um, very structured business approach was really a great like win, and key to being able to take it as an opportunity rather than go into panic and reaction mode initially. And then
Yeah, that I
yeah.
love that. Oh, sorry, I was just going to interrupt you just to say that that is it's so important. Like I really want to highlight that because the way that you describe it, that people are very reactionary and
Mm,
just kind of dive straight into the, oh my gosh, I got to start marketing myself. That's why I think a lot of people just grasp at whatever seems the most obvious and the shortest route to where they want to get to. And that's just like focusing on tactics, right? Like I talk a lot about the difference between tactics and strategy, right? Like, so
mm.
tactics is just the stuff that you're doing, but the strategy is really the why and what's the purpose of it and where are you heading overall. And so I love that you made that distinction, right? That it's not just about like do, like just doing the how and the nuts and bolts and like, I've got to market myself in this way, but it's really, well, what do I actually want to get out of this? Where do I want to go? And because then that actually dictates what tactics you're going to select for your business direction. But I love that you had like learned that or had that as a skill set before starting your new business, because I'm sure it's helped you a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think having worked for the brand that I did, there was so many learnings to take from how they ran as a business. Now, some of that has actually
Mm.
been a bit of a con, shall we say, in that it's held me back in certain ways because at times I feel as though I'm trying to run my business like I'm a global brand because Nike is such a great brand that I've
Mm.
taken on board so much of what I was used to, the way we work there, that I'm trying to do that. And sometimes I have to just press pause, or I need someone else to do that for me and say, you are just one person, you are new in business, you can't be this great big professional brand right from the off. And so there's been lots of things that have helped me to get off the starting block, to build a business, but also to learn from and think about and, take pieces from it that are right to have in the business right now, but also to put to one side in the toolbox, if you like, to think actually they're things that I value and I think are really worthwhile having as part of a business model, but they're not something I can use right now. I need to come back to them when I am at a different stage and bigger and have more resource to help work in those ways.
Yes, but not an easy thing, just like you
Mm.
said, right? Because you can see you've got this model of an amazing global brand in Nike with, I mean, it's a huge company, obviously. And so it's a huge difference between working inside that empire and then starting your own thing, but being comfortable with the space, right? Between like where you are now and where you can see that things can go. Like, honestly, who knows? The sky is the limit, but it's a matter of but there's going to be a space, of course, in time and everything between where you are now and, that kind of a level. So, how are you doing with accepting and sort of being okay with that space?
It's definitely work in progress. It's something
Hmm.
that has to be pretty much top of the mind most of the time because it's very easy to get caught up in the tactics as you describe it, even though I have the strategy.
Yeah.
It has been very easy to just get into the doing and be churning, stuff out and just do all of the time. And that's been another really big, important learning as a business owner and, you know, um, trying to juggle everything and prioritize. It's very different to when you know that you've got a paycheck coming at the end of the month and you've got the
Right.
security, with everything that comes with being an employee to being a business owner. Is that sometimes you've let days go by and all you've done is, the execution, the tasks, and you think, oh, actually, I can't afford to be using so much of that time to do those things. I have to take a step back. So, yeah, it's definitely an evolution. I have learned a lot. I have changed things. And I think that's something else that's come from having the corporate background I've got as well, is that I haven't been afraid to change things, and I'm pretty good at being able to reflect on how things are working, because that was part of how our culture was at Nike. It was a very flat organization, as in, people could make decisions, put
Hmm.
forward proposals. You had, the respect and felt empowered to be able to speak out and offer those kinds of things. And so I think that's something which has been a huge benefit to me as a business owner, which again I've seen a lot of new coaches and entrepreneurs struggle with. They just keep going and going, but I have taken time to, reflect and think, actually, that hasn't worked, and that's okay. That's just trying it out, because I've seen so many of those things through my business career and journey.
Yes, I love that, and I know that this is true about you too, because I've seen you do this.
Mm.
Just evolving and learning and iterating, right? Because the way that we start out is not, and it's such an interesting thing because it's sort of walking a balance. Of course, persistence is incredibly important, right? And having the tenacity to stick with things and be consistent, and we hear all of that kind of messaging, but that's different than banging your head against a wall that isn't like when you can really take a step back and say this wall, it's not moving, I need to find a different way around, or whatever, right? Like, but learning from that, stopping the things that aren't working, do more of the things that are working, and continue to evolve and refine, and not be precious about the decisions that you might have made before, right? Like, yes, this is what I intended before, but time has now shown that that actually wasn't the right way to go. Now I'm going to just pivot a little bit and go in this new direction. It's a really tough thing to do, though, especially when you are the CEO and the people doing the execution of all the things, right? Like, because the CEO has the benefit of being able to see everything from a clear sort of vision perspective, and then the workers are doing the things, like they're actually executing on all of this stuff. But when you're a solopreneur, you are all of those roles, and it's so hard to think, okay, I've got to step back and look at the big picture vision, but you have to pull yourself out of the weeds of all the doing, which is exactly what you just said. Is like a day goes by and all I've done is just tasks, like to do tasks. But where is the actual overall vision and strategy? So it's really like being intentional about making sure that you're putting on your CEO hat and looking at things and saying, okay, is this where we need to be heading with this?
Yeah, absolutely. The way you've described it is perfect, because I'm not perfect at how I'm doing that, but I do have the awareness. And so I
Mhm.
will step back, even though maybe that step back should have come a little bit sooner. I am doing that, and I'm aware that that has to keep happening. And something, as you were talking there, sprung to mind with this whole conversation around, having a very clear strategy, really being connected to what it is you're trying to achieve in the bigger picture, and then looking at how you put that into place. And that's something that is really kind of driven my coaching ethos and the way that I work, and what I'm really trying to help people to do with their lifestyle and with habits, because it's the same kind of thing, and I
Mhm.
do actually talk to some of the people I've coached about it in this way, that it's like your life is like a business. Think of it in that way, because sometimes then it's easier to see it, that if you know what you want out of it, and you have those big goals and you have that vision, and then you just get so bogged down in the day to day that you lose that, that's there, but it just gets further and further away, because that day to day stuff takes over and is so, repetitive and continuous and all encompassing, that you just get lost in it, and before you know it, 3 months have gone, and the thing you wanted to do to feel better hasn't happened. And it's the same in your business, isn't it? So it's been, for me, it's actually been very liberating thinking of it in that way, taking those business learnings, but then applying it, not just to when I coach other people, but to me as well, and how I develop and improve and learn from both a business and a personal perspective.
Yes, I love that. I love how you drew that parallel between, like, I mean, yes, you need to be the CEO of your business, but also really the CEO of your life too. And all of
Mm,
these skills that we've just been talking about, the skill of being able to take a step back and see where am I headed, and are the things that I'm doing on a daily basis actually getting me where I want to go, or are they getting me further away from where I want to go? And we all need this, whether you are an entrepreneur or not. We all need to have that sense. And I guess, I mean, that's what we talk about when we say goals, right? Like having goals, but
mm.
it's trite. It doesn't really like, it's kind of hard to grab onto in terms of, just setting arbitrary goals or New Year's resolutions or whatever. But it really is. I prefer this concept that we're talking about, of being the CEO of your life. Um, and that I love that there's so much crossover with that. Um, Tell me a little bit about, because I know that, like, for you, something that you feel passionate about is like health for women, empowering women to be healthy, to be active, and also how that trickles down and impacts kids, right? Like the next generation coming up. And I'd love to hear about how that all, like, why is that such a passionate thing for you in your life, in your business, in your corporate career before you started your own business? Like, tell me a little bit about what's going on there for you.
So that was one of the things that I came to understand when I asked those questions as I was about to leave Nike, in terms of, what I enjoyed, what I'd been doing at Nike that I was good at. And part of what I was doing at Nike in the few years before I left was working in roles that were connected to the women's and the kids team. And a big part of Nike's mission is to inspire girls to be active and to make sport a daily habit. I mean, that's their ultimate vision: for everyone, make sport a daily habit. But girls was a big focus because um, there's a huge dropout rate of all kids in sports when they get to that kind of 12 to 14, kind of age range, as they hit puberty and start to develop and change and so on.
Hmm.
But girls especially have a huge dropout rate in sport. And when I say sport, it isn't just, the things we think of, like soccer or football or
Team
hockey.
sports, and
Yeah,
yeah.
those kind of things. It's activity. And
Hmm.
a lot of that is linked to the development that girls go through with the changes. And some of what we'd found at Nike was, because they have to start to wear sports bras, and there isn't a lot of, I guess, like openness and awareness and just acceptance that that's a very normal part of life when they hit that pubescent age. And there's also not, or hasn't been, a lot of great product for girls to transition into, so that they could wear the right clothing to support them staying in sports. So I was really passionate about the work I had been doing there. I'd done a project on plus size women in sport, and really diving into kind of the mindset around women who were seen as plus size, and whether their size was holding them back from taking better care of themselves. And you may remember Nike kind of rocked the world, if you like, when they put plus size mannequins into a lot of their stores for the first time. It hit all of
Hmm.
the news and was on breakfast TV here when they put the mannequins into their London Central store. And that was something that, having a daughter myself who's 15, I was just so, yeah, committed and passionate to, because I could see through everything I'd done at Nike that there was this massive risk to children. And they actually, are doing a lot of research, not Nike, but independent organizations and sports organizations, that is looking as though kids today, that younger generation, potentially have 5 years less on their lifespan than what we'll have, because of how sedentary their lives are. And I know you've got young children, boys, and
Yes.
games and devices. Technology is a
Mm.
huge part of our children's lives. You see children as young as 2 sitting in a pushchair with an iPad or an iPhone,
Yeah.
watching something. And that's something that we really, really do have to take responsibility for as adults in our generation, because I certainly, feel heartbroken at the thought that my daughter might have a much shorter lifespan because of the way her generation are being brought up and the cultural changes that are happening. So I really feel that, even as women, our generation, we struggle with movement and sport as well, because again, we've been brought up in a time where we also dropped out of sport, and it wasn't very normal for us to be active and do things. It's only really been over the last, say, maybe 10 years that we've seen a lot more women included in fitness and exercise, and lifting weights, for example. That's
Hmm.
still quite a new thing, for women to be at the gym and not necessarily deadlifting, but even using dumbbells or something like that. So there's a lot of women around the 35 plus age range, all of the way up, who haven't grown up in an era where exercise and taking care of yourself is just part of life. And there's also a lot of men who are not active, but it's much more normal for men to stay in sport up to an older age, and to have activity as part of their general lifestyle. So, one thing is that I want women to be better, because I know we have to take care of ourselves. I know that, heart disease now is the biggest risk we've got as women. It's no longer breast cancer, it's heart disease, and the majority of that's caused by lifestyle factors. But we as women, and usually because of that, are the kind of the head role, if you like, within families. We're still culturally in that way.
Hmm.
We can therefore have the biggest influence onto our kids. And, especially for girls need role models. That was something at Nike which we talked about a lot, because there's a huge gap in girls having iconic women to look up to, not just in sport, but outside of sport. When you ask women which female most inspires you, they really struggle to answer that question. I know I've certainly asked it in my community before. Um, and even myself, it's something I've often struggled with. And when you look then to sport, there's very few really strong female athletes that girls immediately go to, whereas boys, yeah, it's Cristiano Ronaldo or whoever else, maybe
Yes,
depending what
yes.
sport they're interested in. Yeah, so we really have to normalize healthy living and value ourselves. And this is not just about sport at all and exercise. It's about taking care of yourself and being healthy, because what happens is when girls or kids drop out of sport at school, when they get to that age where they're able to choose, it doesn't just mean they're not active. It means that they start to becoming healthy in lots of other ways. We're still not helping to bring kids up knowing that they should talk kindly to themselves and support themselves and
Yeah.
celebrate themselves and think about the food that they're putting into their bodies. And these days, obviously, mental health is a huge thing, and we see lots of kids struggling with anxiety and other mental health challenges, and we haven't normalized that, because we're still not at that point as adults either. So I know that's a lot there I said, but that's what it's really all about, is taking what I did in my roles at Nike and what I know and understand is a real critical, I guess, point that we're at in our world and culture, isn't it? In that we have to really, not have to really, but we must improve our health, because we are at risk of a health pandemic because of lifestyle factors. So, I think as women, we can really show the way to kids of just how normal it is to take care of yourself, and how normal it is to practice all of these different, wellness tools that you might want as part of your lifestyle to help you feel better.
Yes. I mean, what you've said is so important. And I really like your use of the word normalize, because I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking it's so true, of course. Many of us are aware of this concept of that kids are active and they're in sports. And, it's like a longstanding joke about how parents are always driving their kids to different sports. But then why do we all just stop? Why do people stop playing sports or being active, or when we're no longer kids? Like, what's going on there? I think it is, I mean, I'm sure it's really cool that Nike was doing a lot of work and research and all of this into this topic, but I'm sure that so much of it comes down to that it's just normal. it's just the normal pattern of life, is that you do sports and you're on teams and things like that when you're a kid. And then when you start to grow up, you put those things behind you and then get down to like work or serious things or
Mm.
whatever. Or if you're not going to become a professional at that particular sport, then you just leave it, right? I think that there's maybe a lot of that too, right? Is the I don't know, what do you think about this? We only put kids in sports because we have like this secret desire that they're going to actually go on and become professional, and then they're going to be the next Wayne Gretzky, or whatever. Um, but
Yeah.
less emphasis on just like the fun of it, the skill of it, the team of it. What I
Mm.
don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that Nike were focusing on was making it about play. So that
Yes.
sport is about play, it's about fun, it's about enjoyment. And certainly here in the UK, the education system really deprioritizes sport. Sport is the first thing that goes off the curriculum when there's, for example, practice needed for a school play, or
Mm,
there's a parents' evening and they need to set the hall up, then the PE lessons are cancelled. The weather's bad, so the PE lesson outside's cancelled in the summer, and they don't do anything alternative inside. It's just not done. And
mm,
there's so little activity encouraged. And I think there's just this message coming through because of that it isn't part of life, that you
right.
don't need to move in. As I said, it's not just about the movement, but movement and being involved in things like this is about more than the benefits you get from the exercise itself. It's about being part of a team and a community, and what that does for your well-being and for you and your development and confidence as well. And it's also about, when you do feel good, then you want to make better choices in terms of what you eat, and you can manage stress better, you can build your resilience and overcome obstacles. I mean, there's so much we know about people who are really top performers in sports, and the way that they're able to overcome and deal with resilience. And some of them go on, when they finish their sport, to be these inspirational speakers and work on things like that, because it's not just about being a performer and managing the challenges you have in the sport that you're actually performing in, but it's about the whole mental side that comes with that as well, and the strength you get from that. So I think, yeah, there's definitely being that mentality of, be in sport if you're going to potentially be good enough to be paid and do it as a career, as a pro. And if you're not, then what's the point? And
Mm-hmm.
again, I think with the world we're living in social media, that's something we've got to be even more careful of, because
Even
kids are
more.
aspiring so much to success, only being when you are one of these massive influencers, or you know a huge follower, someone with an account with huge following on social media, and that's what matters, that's what's going to bring you the happiness. So yeah, I think we've got to be really mindful about the full package of what healthy living is, and that's why I'm talking about normalizing it, because I just want it to be not about moving your body only, but that's part of a holistic approach to
Mm-hmm.
wellness and what it means to feel good and take care of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And breaking down all of those barriers that you touched on, like either body image or confidence issues, or
Mm,
even just logistic, practical things. Like you said, for girls, they need a sports bra, but how do they know what and who do they talk to about that? And what is available for them? And just like there's so many potential things that if we can remove more of those barriers, normalize that being active and moving your body on a daily basis is just a normal part and important part of life, not
mhm,
sort of like a side note or something maybe you can do if you've got time, but if you're too busy, then don't stress about it. Um and 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 if you're not going to be a pro, then don't bother, like it's not that important either. And like there's just so many just non-helpful messages that are
mm,
out there in our cultural fabric right now. So I love that you are working hard to reverse so much of that, and to really, and I love that you're focusing on women, because recognizing that women are, currently have, there's so much potential for us to be role
mm,
models for our kids, role models for other like younger girls coming up. Like there's just So not just to improve our own well-being, but to be role models for the next generation. So I love that you are working on all of that stuff. It's so great.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the message that I'm trying to get out there, and as you say, working very hard too, because I feel like, it is time for change. So many women think that being healthy is about being a certain number on the scales.
Yes.
I'm past mid-40s now, and a lot of my friends are so focused on that equal and being healthy and being happy. That's the key thing. They think, I
Yeah.
lose those pounds and then I'm going to be happy. But we know that, people can lose weight. And this is why many people then put weight back on, because they haven't actually changed anything, and they haven't changed the things that are what are going to make them feel healthy and happy. And, that's something we've got, again, to take responsibility for as adults and as women, that we don't pass that on to that younger generation, because we are living in this very busy, very noisy social media world where, we see the influences that are out there and are coming through to our children. And so we've got to make sure that it's the right things that are being put in front of them. And as you say, that ripple effect we can have as women onto other women as well, and the ripple effects that that creates. That's, how we're going to make change. It's a bit like the whole grassroots analogy of sports. You
Hmm.
get right into the grassroots, and yes, it takes time and you need volume to create change, but that will come, and you've got to start. And then I think we are at a point where that is beginning to shift now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it will take time, but that's why we keep on moving forward. So that's great. I mean, before we sort of wrap up, I want to ask you two more things. I want to know from your perspective, Nicola, like what does wellness mean to you? We use the word wellness a lot. We all kind of have a vague sense of what it means, but what to you, from your perspective, what does wellness mean?
I think it means valuing yourself and knowing your worth and feeling accepting of that, because people may be watching or listening to this and thinking, oh yeah, she's talking about being the CEO of her business and she can be the CEO of her life as well, and why it's important to take care of yourself. But for many, many years, I was not this person that I am today. I grappled with many health challenges, and it has been a long journey. And that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I learned so much trying to fix myself through all of those years. And I realized after many unhappy years and lots of different struggles that acceptance is key. Is
Mhm.
that it's when you value yourself and believe in yourself and you build that self-love, which I used to think was so cringy when people would talk about loving yourself first. But I know now that that's really what it's about, because I
Yeah.
think that's where it starts and ends, if you like. There's kind of this circle around it then that is whatever you want it to be for you based on what you need. And I talk about quite maybe a strange analogy when people think about health and wellness, but that it's like a box of chocolates. You pick your favorites. If you have, I'm sure you've had a lovely box of chocolates gifted before, and you go straight for the favorite ones and you have those, and you look at the content list of chocolates and you pick the next ones, and there'll always be some that stay there for maybe a few days or even a few weeks, and then you go, oh yeah, I think I'll have that one now. It's exactly the same approach with wellness. You pick the things that are going to give you the biggest return on value right now. So that's going to change, that's going to evolve in time. So wellness isn't fixed. It's not you have to exercise, you have to eat certain food, you have to have 8 hours sleep a night. Yes, there's foundations that help you to feel healthy and to minimize your risk of illness and disease, and because of that you're going to hopefully feel pretty well and give yourself a better chance of feeling happy. But I think it's about finding what you need and giving yourself just those maybe few small things that you haven't been focusing on that really shift you and really, yeah, up level the way you feel about yourself. And in turn, that makes you want to take better care of yourself. And you're accepting that you're not perfect. It's not about doing everything you think you have to do to be healthy and well. And that if you don't do those things, then what's the point? Because it's not going to matter. So yeah, acceptance is probably the key word that I would use there.
Yes, I love that. I completely agree with you, and I really love the box of chocolates analogy that you used. It's perfect, really. It does, and there's also room in a healthy lifestyle for chocolate too. So I'm on
100%.
board with all of that. I'm curious, what are some things that you yourself, what do you do to support your own health, like that physical, mental, emotional,
Mm.
health and well-being? I'd love to give our audience just some ideas. And this is, of course, whether they're entrepreneurs or not, like just some things that you do that you prioritize that make your life better. Like, what are your chocolates that you go for immediately?
Yeah. So exercise is definitely the thing for me because I'd struggled, as I said, with anxiety for many years. Exercise was something that was never a part of who I was. I hated exercise and any kind of sports at school. So when I started to work for Nike, it was quite ironic because I felt as though I didn't fit the Nike employee model
Yeah,
whatsoever. And we had a gym on site at the office, and I used to go to the gym and we had classes. And, this was 22 years ago. And
right.
I went really as a sticky plaster to fix the damage I was doing on a weekend, if you like. So although I exercised for many years, I didn't really get any benefit from it. And then around 8 years ago, I had a complete switch in the way I approached my health and really fell in love with exercise. And it became just, I guess, the crux of who I am and what I need to feel strong. And I'm not the fittest person. I don't lift the heaviest weights, but I do move my body every day. And movement is one of the 5 pillars I have in my wellness framework. And I talk about movement rather than exercise because for everyone, it doesn't have to be a workout session, a gym session, an exercise in the way you think. But just
Mhm.
moving your body is so empowering in so many ways, in terms of respecting yourself, feeling healthy. For me, it really does help to relieve stress. And that, I know not everyone likes it for this, but for me, it is that kind of mindfulness
Mhm.
space. It gets me really present. And so for me, it's been, a big answer to what I was trying to find a fix for all of those years. So yeah, absolutely love movement. And that's why when I left Nike, I also qualified as a personal trainer just because I thought, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to,
Yeah.
understand more about this and be able to help clients if that's what they're struggling with. I love getting outside for walks as well. So that's part of the movement, especially on a morning. I love to get out. Listening to podcasts is a huge one for me. I really do enjoy that. I find it just really invigorates me and gives me like inspiration and ideas and passion.
Yeah.
I drink a lot of water. I always have done. And I enjoy every morning I have a hot water with a full lemon squeezed into it. And that's something I've done for probably well over 20 years. And
Mm,
I find that that's just great for my skin. It's like the outside as well as the inside.
right.
So I love doing that. And something I've been working on to improve, and again, like we said, wellness isn't about perfection. It's about you trying things and doing what works for you. But I'm really working on improving my morning routine. So that outside walk is a key one, even if it's
Mhm.
only 10 minutes. And I talk about having this triple M morning kind of framework that I like to use with having mindset and mindfulness in there. And the mindset I pretty much get from the podcast, it starts me up when I'm on the walk,
Yeah.
gets my brain into gear and so on. But the mindfulness has always been the challenge for me in terms of, just helping to de-stress. And so I'm really trying to practice some breath work, and I'm trying different things because I've not found a type of meditation that I really like. I've
Mhm.
recently tried a little bit of yoga, and that was interesting. I really like that. That's a very different type of movement for me and something I want to try and add into my kind of habits and workout routine. So I think, yeah, the mindfulness is one that I really want to bring more into my wellness toolkit.
Nice. I love that. I mean, so many good ideas in there for sure. I am really curious though about what when you were talking about the shift that you made from being somebody who did not have an identity as an athlete or somebody who
Mm.
exercised, like you weren't interested in that, and then it shifted, and now movement and activity is something that you prioritize and makes you feel really good. So what was that turning point there? Like was there something that happened, or how did you change that piece, or what caused that to happen?
Yeah, so if anybody I know is listening to this, they're gonna chuckle when they hear me say this, but it was the body coach, Joe Wicks, who you might have heard of. So I'm
No,
a
I
hu
haven't.
oh,
Is
yeah,
that in the
really?
UK?
Oh, yeah.
Or
So, I mean, he's pretty
okay.
global now, but he, brought out this program. He was very new. I hadn't heard of him, and he brought out this kind of 90-day program for weight loss and fitness, but with a very, very different approach. And
Hmm.
that's evolved a lot over the years. He ran this whole PE with Joe thing through the lockdown, where every morning he would go live on YouTube and do PE for families so that kids, while they were at home from school, could still move every day. So he's got this huge mission, which actually is I guess what really did shift me from just being someone who knew I should be taking care of myself and knew I had to feel different and that I hated feeling so low and unhappy and unconfident and so on. That journey really started with that, because when I started that program, the way that I ate changed and my relationship with food completely changed. I had a
Mhm.
much healthier relationship. I no longer counted, worried, talked about naughty food, treat days, off days. That shifted. The way I worked out shifted. And I just really fell in love with working out. And everyone I used to work with at Nike used to laugh because they'd call me like the body coach 2.0, because I'd take the classes in the gym at work and I'd give everyone advice on what to eat. And I was that ambassador, which is why when the redundancy came about and I was, chatting to someone and they said, think about what you love and what you do and what you enjoy. And it was like, that's it. That's what I already do. I already help people to feel better and to take better care of their health. So, maybe that was the shift really. And I think
Hmm.
what I would say, if anyone's struggling with that, is a lot of people exercise because they think they have to
Right.
and they don't enjoy it. They're just going through the motion. And that's what you've got to try and find a way to change, is that it's not because you have to do it, it's because you want to do it. And again, I think it comes back to that value in yourself and liking yourself and going, I'm going to do this because I know I'm going to feel better from it.
Yes, that is so good. And I mean, it's just so interesting, I find, because what you said, you used to be aware that you should be exercising. And I
Hmm.
think that probably is true for, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, I'm sure most people know that it's important to exercise. But then the gap between, we all know this, but so few of us, the stats are so bad on how many of us actually do have what would be considered an active lifestyle or moving and exercising regularly. And so I'm finding myself particularly fascinated by what is it that happens, that either to stop people from like adopting that identity and making that shift and just starting moving for fun, and what is it that makes some people say, like you, have that kind of epiphany and be like, no, actually I'm going to give this a try. So it
Mm.
sounds like for you it was a different, like a new role model or a mentor, somebody who just presented it in a different way. It was different than what you'd heard or seen before. It seemed more fun or more approachable
Mm.
or accessible or something, and that broke down that barrier and just allowed you to get into it. Because from there, of course, like you were describing, the snowball effect, right? Then it starts to be internally rewarding because it feels good, and
Yeah.
things, other parts of your life start to get easier and more fun too. Like you start to actually enjoy paying attention to what you're eating, and all of that. It definitely a snowball effect, but it's like, what's that gateway? Like what is it that gets people to onto that other side? And I think it's
Mm.
just so important to explore that.
Yeah, I personally think, and this is what I use in my coaching, is that it's about knowing why you want to do it, and not
Mhm.
because a lot of people, for example, at the start of this year, would have set out with a goal to lose weight or to get fit. And they go all in, maybe they joined a gym and they go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. But then by the end of January, maybe once or twice a week,
It
suddenly the
fizzles, yeah.
machines are all empty when you get to the gym, because they've gone in with this like all or nothing mentality. It's like, well, I
Right.
have to be fit. Whereas, I know you've read and like Atomic Habits, the book
Yeah.
by James Clear. It's all about starting small and making it your identity, and finding something that you enjoy, but that isn't about, I have to do this. It's linked to that why. Like, why do I want to be this person? Why does that matter to me? Why should I exercise? Because if you go on and just saying, yeah, I have to go, I have to do it, I have to
Right.
lose weight, or I have to be fit, it's what people do. I have to work out 3 times a week. It's not going to stick. And that's when I don't think you get the results either, because energetically you're just not into it. You're not enjoying it and you're not attached to it. And it becomes a drain and something you resent, really. And so you're not getting the output, which is that, self-belief, self-worth, the confidence, the strength, the happiness coming from it. And that's why I think a lot of people then turn their back on something like exercise, because it just feels like a chore.
Yes. Yeah, it feels like something that they're supposed to do, that they have
Mhm.
to do, and I think human nature makes us resist, you know, doing things that we think we're supposed to do versus something that you're
Mm.
actively choosing to do. Like, I value myself and I am choosing to do this. I mean, it's just such a fascinating topic, and I really I'm excited to kind of explore that even more going forward. And I just love the work that you're doing. I mean, this has just been such an awesome conversation. We could talk for hours. I'm quite sure. I'm so glad that we finally like set aside the time to actually record this conversation. There were so many awesome takeaways in there for people, and that's whether they're building a business or just looking to find a healthier way forward to embrace their own wellness and healthy lifestyle. But before I let you go, of course, like tell us where people can go to learn more about you and connect with you.
Yeah, so I like to hang out on Instagram. You'll see me in stories a lot. So I'm on there as lifenow_coaching. If you
Mhm.
just type in life now, it'll pop up. And I'm also on LinkedIn, because part of what I'm doing is working with businesses and really trying to get out and speak about, what I've talked about today, so that we can share that message to more people, and really try to embed wellness into the workplace as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn as Nicola Mercer, or I have the Life Now coaching page on there. And, I've got the website, lifenow.uk, and I have the podcast as well. I was inspired by you to set up my podcast, Live Healthy Now. And that's literally about what we've spoke and discussed today, is unwrapping what being healthy really means, and
Mhm.
giving people different chocolates for their chocolate box every week, so that they can just hear different things and think, yeah, that's something I need, or maybe, no, that's not for me, but maybe it might be for someone they know, or something they can come back to later, and just really breaking down what being healthy is about. So yeah, you can find me in those places. And, if you do come and have a look, then let me know that you've listened on Kim's podcast.
Amazing. Yes. And I'll put those links in the show notes for sure so that people can find you easily. And yes, absolutely. I love that we have to get this message out, your message. And so if anybody is listening or watching who, is in like a corporate situation or is an entrepreneur or really just wants to, help with furthering this message and benefit from all of this stuff, then definitely get in touch with Nicola. So yes, so amazing. Thank you so much, Nicola, for being here. I hope you enjoyed sitting in on my conversation with Nicola. I would love to hear your thoughts on what we discussed. And I'm curious, is exercise a regular part of your life? Do you move your body on a regular basis? And if you do, I would really love to know why you do. As Nicola and I were talking about, it's really interesting that some of us exercise regularly and some of us don't, even though we know we should. And I'm just personally interested to hear more about why that is. So if you're watching on YouTube, drop me a comment below this video, or if you're listening to the audio of this episode, then just find me on Instagram and let me know. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to continue the conversation. Okay, that's a wrap for today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you again very soon.